welcome to the Screen Podcast, offering you insight and analysis of the global film industry, brought to you by the teams from Screen Daily and Screen International. I'm Wendy Mitchell, a contributing editor at Screen, and I am joined today by awards and box office editor Charles Gant. Hi, Charles.
Hey, Wendy.
Who has just spent last week I'm assuming a very hot week in Barcelona, like the rest of Europe, for CineEurope. We're going to have an explainer. We're going to hear some of the real buzz titles that exhibitors are most excited about. And yeah, maybe Charles will even tell us something that didn't go well. Who knows? So would you say, it sounds like from reports I've heard and from you, that it was a pretty buoyant mood this year, partly because films have been doing well at the box office, so these people are happy.
It makes such a difference when films are doing well and everyone's in a good mood and everyone's sort of like thinking, we're already doing great, so how can we do even better? And for me, I think what was really telling is the difference between 2 years ago and this year, where in both cases, Disney opened a big animated film. And a couple of years ago, it was Inside Out 2. And that opened really great. But it opened really great after a year that had been terrible since the beginning of January. So last year, it was like the cavalry came over the hill just in time, the weekend before CineEurope, and everyone was like, oh my God, woe, what kind of woe is me, but maybe more woe was me. And now we've got Disney and everyone was thanking Disney and you're bringing audiences back. And obviously that meant people were going to be exposed to the trailers for all the new films. Everyone was like, it was kind of relief after disaster. This year, Disney opened Toy Story 5, which was even bigger than Inside Out 2. And actually, no one really referenced it because we're already doing great. All of these films that had, big and small and medium size, were all, had been consistently performing since the start of the year. So it wasn't worthy of remark, barely.
It wasn't just one savior, I guess, this year. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, a very confident, buoyant mood amongst distributors and exhibitors. So definitely contributed to, good vibes in Barcelona.
Okay. Let's start, Charles, with some of the films. And, most films are not shown in full. You might tell us about that later. But what were, maybe if you could try to pick one highlight from each slate. I don't know if that's an impossible task. And like you said, there were more than ever. There were 11 presenting. But yeah, I'm just curious what went down the best at CineEurope 26.
So bearing in mind that my NDA also says that I will not ask any of the delegates or presenters for their comments or opinions on any of the product presentations of all films they see or present at CineEurope. So with that in mind, I will just sort of say...
Just going on the mood you felt in the room, or the levels
going on
of
the mood that I felt
whatever.
not so much in the room, or not me asking, but me possessing ears, and kind of picking up on a vibe.
Yes.
I mean, what I would say is one of the sort of pleasant surprises of CineEurope, and this came in the Sony presentation. So they showed, they introduced their new film, Resident Evil, which is directed by Zach Cregger, who did Weapons. Now,
of Weapons fame, yeah.
Weapons fame. Now, I'm pretty sure this is like the 8th Resident Evil film. And, look, what I would say is a lot of the people at CineEurope were not wildly excited for a Resident Evil fan. And in fact, many people kind of thought, this sounds like we're coming to the end of the slate presentation, 16 minutes of the first 16 minutes of Resident Evil. Perhaps I don't need to
I'm going to the bar. I'm going for my tapas.
I've got my early dinner plans, and people were walking out in droves, and some complete stranger next to me said, oh my God, what has happened? And he assumed that some new, breaking news had occurred. World War III, was breaking out.
Just an exodus.
And so I can't say what I think of it, but what I would say is that those people who left regretted it.
Oh,
For two
okay.
reasons. One is
Because the exhibitors are allowed to talk to each other the next day, I
it,
assume, or at
it,
dinner, even
it,
if you're not allowed to speak. Yeah.
exactly, and I think Zach Cregger is going to do something pretty transformational with this franchise. Is what is the vibe that I would pick up. And then, of course, the other thing that happened is Sony then after that presented the opening equivalent amount of opening minutes of their new Spider-Man film, Spider-Man: Brand New Day. So people were doubly distressed. Um,
So if you walked
Sony
out, you missed the Spider-Man footage
You
too.
did.
Oh,
You did. And that was
lesson
a
learned.
lesson learned. And
Yeah.
that was like a real, what I would say, that was a real trend at CineEurope was to show. I mean, obviously, this is not a new thing. If you're going to show a chunk of your film, it kind of makes sense to show the kind of the beginning segment. But there was a lot of that going on. They showed, as I mentioned, Resident Evil, Spider-Man: Brand New Day. Lionsgate showed the opening, I think, 20 minutes of, or almost 20 minutes of their new Hunger Games film. Then Warner Brothers presentation climaxed with the first 7 minutes of Dune Part 3. Um, Again, I can't say what I thought of it, and I'm not allowed to ask people, but I would say that people were quite excited about the first 7 minutes of Dune Part 3. Then you had Warner Brothers also showed the start of the Cat in the Hat, their new animation. Studio Canal showed the opening section of this British independent film called Everybody Wants to F Asterix CK Me, which is
Yes.
directed by Jonathan Shea. He's a TV director. It's his feature debut, and he wrote it, and it stars Taron Egerton. And yeah, I would say that also landed very successfully. And then,
And yeah, some
well,
other
Universal.
ones that really stood out. Yeah.
So Universal showed the Trojan horse sequence of the Odyssey at the beginning
Ooh.
of its presentation. And it then showed
I mean,
another.
they don't even need to promote that film anymore. I mean, we're all going to go see it. I mean, like, yeah,
There's
but,
yeah.
and you can't
There's,
say how it looked, but did the horse go down well in the room,
I
Charles?
I would say it.
Yeah.
I would. What God? What can I say? It kind of like, because that is such a, that whole story. It's like, how did that really work? Like soldiers inside a horse. It's like you can tell
Yeah.
it on text, but when you try and show it on screen, it's quite hard to kind of do that convincingly. And I think
Yeah.
no,
And as we know, Nolan likes to do things in camera. I mean, he's not doing a huge CGI horse.
Nolan found a way to make that legendary kind of story sort of actually make physical sense on screen. I'm probably in trouble for saying that, but look, Universal are not going to be upset with me. Um,
No.
and that
I don't think
Universal.
that's going to get you in cinema jail yet, Charles. I think that's just a factual sort of statement. Yeah.
And
You
yeah, they
haven't
also
spoiled
showed
it for anyone.
another chunk of the film at the end of their presentation. So that was a priority title for them for sure. I think, look, it's like when you've got a very strong film, like they evidently have with the Odyssey. It's like they want the cinema operators to know, because it's like we all know everyone's going to go and see that film, but everyone has to be reminded. Like, I need to think long sustained playability. I need to think
Hmm.
my biggest, most premium screens should be given to this film, and on a sustained basis. So I think that is the kind of sort of subtle message of that. It's like, okay, you were all ready to play this film, but we're just saying, like, get ready. So for Disney, I'm going to give a shout out to a Searchlight Pictures film, which is the new Martin McDonagh, Wild Horse 9.
I hear from people, I've talked to some people who've seen it who say it is wonderful, and that is not part of Charles's NDA. I've talked to people who say it's going to be in their top 3 films of the year. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
So
the
yeah,
trailer's great that's been
mean,
out. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, yeah. So yeah, outside of CineEurope, yeah, I've also had a conversation with someone who's very gung ho on the film, and then John Malkovich's performance, and John Malkovich stars with Sam Rockwell. They play CIA agents in 1973 who were sent to destabilize democracy in Chile, and then they decide to take a bit of a side trip to Easter Island. The scene, all I can say is the scene that they played gangbusters. So I'm super excited for Wild Horse 9.
And what's the next on your list?
Oh, so yeah, I mean, so Amazon MGM Studios. I mean, we should probably mention talent. Talent, star
Hmm.
talent, which is always in short supply at CineEurope, particularly compared to the
They go to Vegas for
CinemaCon.
CinemaCon,
CinemaCon.
yeah.
So yeah, so quick explain on CinemaCon. This is the equivalent event that happens in Vegas in April, and that's mainly for North American cinema operators, although some people from around the world do attend. Um, but obviously it's a short flight from LA to Vegas, and
Yeah, that's a bit easier.
they get more talent to come. Whereas, it's a big deal to bring people over from the US to Barcelona. They tend to rely more on someone who might happen to just, be in Europe at the time. I don't know what the situation was with Michael B. Jordan, who was pl- the surprise and very pleasant surprise brought on the stage at the end of the Amazon MGM Studios presentation. And this is for his new film, The Thomas Crown Affair, which he stars in, directs, and produces. And he introduced footage for that. And yeah, I think it's fair to say people are super excited. This is the third version of the film. The previous versions were with Steve McQueen and Pierce Brosnan. Um,
Yeah.
but it's been,
I'm excited for that. He's such a class act, Michael B. Jordan. I mean, just everybody, he oozes charm whenever he's on stage or talking to people, and it's perfect for Thomas Crown Affair, isn't it?
and they certainly lent into the whole point that he's just won the US Academy Award, which was referenced more than once, and obviously when they greenlit this film and they didn't know that that was going to happen. And, in fact, you know, uh, you might say, Leo DiCaprio was perhaps, considered the favorite to win that award, and Timothy Chalamet was in strong contention. So, yeah, Amazon MGM Studios, in their first year at the bat at Cine Europe, that their whole presentation was I thought really interesting, because I think that they are cognizant of the fact that Amazon is a brand name associated with streaming. I think they were very keen to lean into the fact that Amazon MGM Studios is a theatrical, studio just like any other. They are fully committed to theatrical. That was the message that came from Charlie Coleman and Helen Moss, who are who are sort of running distribution and marketing there. And they were, they were trumpeting the fact that they've been hiring heads territory heads in all these different territories. So they had like a big. Amazon basically came to Cine Europe with one clear intention, which is to say, we are theatrical. We are committed to theatrical. You should be paying attention to our slate of films, and we are going to be, giving everything a theatrical window. And yeah, we're all about theatrical. And it was a good presentation. And I would say, yeah, I would say Thomas Crown Affair was one of the films that without me asking anyone, Cine Europe, I would say was something that I kind of absorbed as being a film that was resonating with folk. As for Lionsgate, I mean, I think they've got a lot. They've got a lot riding
Big
on this.
year.
Well, they've
Yeah.
got a lot ride. I mean, look. I mean, they've just had
Already
Michael.
had a big year,
They've
and
just had
yeah.
Michael in North America. Obviously, Universal had international on that, but they had The Housemaid, and they're having a big year, and they've got a new Hunger Games film, and it's another prequel to the main quadrilogy, but it's a sequel to the last Hunger Games film. And my takeaway on that would be that it's kind of, because I think Hunger Games what's it called, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It was something quite different. It was something quite different to the other Hunger Games films, and it maybe didn't quite deliver what audiences wanted from a Hunger Games film. This film, I would say, it's also something different, but it's in that classic sort of Hollywood trope of offer audiences something familiar with a bit of a twist. So something that's different and familiar in the same package. And that kind of is where I feel this is going to sit. Um, it's more, there's going to be much more of the game playing within the Hunger Games, which is the 20, it's all happening 24 years before the first Hunger Games film with the Katniss.
Okay, so Katniss is not born yet, I
Katniss is not
guess.
born yet, no. But
Okay.
they've got, you know, a young guy who's 16 years old. His character is 16 years old. And we're clearly going to be following his journey in the film. And he's got a girlfriend that he's in love with who's back home. So it's got kind of like some of the same kind of elements, I guess, of the first Hunger Games film. And they're Lionsgate are pretty excited about it. They've obviously got a lot riding on it. And I think this is a film that has the potential to bring that franchise sort of back in terms of, global box office.
So Charles, what's another buzz title on your list?
So Leica, the
Yeah,
animation,
the
stop motion
animation.
animation house came, and they only presented one film, which is Wildwood. And it's their next stop motion animation. It's adapted from a book, and they played a significant amount of footage. They played, I think, in total about 20 minutes of footage. Travis Knight was there, who is the CEO of Leica and also the director of the film. And a lot of love for this film, I would say. I mean, I loved Coraline. I think they've made some other good films. So, Box Trolls was good. I don't consistently love every like a film. Missing Link didn't really get that. I was one of the people that didn't love Kubo and the Two Strings. I know lots of people do. This one, yeah, I kind of feel like this is going to be another of my favorite Leica films. Yeah.
And what's next?
So for Paramount, and I should probably sort of mention here that Paramount is famous at CineEurope for not always for its product reel, but it's really famous for the way it presents its
Good. Let's have some fun up there on stage.
and
Yeah.
Mark Vian, who is president of International Theatrical Distribution, is a born showman, and he just loves to entertain. And we're kind of look, the presentations are normally interesting for their product, but they're not always kind of brilliantly entertaining in their own right. But he always creates this sort of filmed introduction, which kind of spoofs off one or more of the films that they're going to be showing.
Fun. Okay.
And last year it was all kind of to do with the Naked Gun. And I seem to remember there was like, the Gladiator film, was probably the previous year. And Mark loves dressing up, any excuse to come on stage in a costume, and he gets all of his territory heads and ropes them in to this filmed sketch. So, John Fletcher in the UK, and obviously it must come, if you go and work for Paramount, you kind of know what is expected of you. You're gonna have to take part in this annual tradition. So this year it was for the film Ebenezer, which is Ty West's kind of retelling of A Christmas Carol. It stars Johnny Depp, and Mark starred as Ebenezer. But what's always quite clever about this, it's not just a comic sketch for the sake of it. It always sort of relates to the theme of what they're trying to say. So as Ebenezer, he's confronted with the ghosts of Christmas past, Christmas present, Christmas future, who are telling him, don't be such a Scrooge. Give us more films. And the
Ah.
message of Paramount's presentation was, We are giving you more films than ever before. We've got 15 films this year, which is so Paramount's always been, I would say, Paramount has, not in the past, I would say, been the most prolific studio. And this year, they are saying we've got a big slate and look ahead to next year. We've got a big slate, and we are back to the hilt by our sort of relatively new owners, David Ellison, and they're investing in film, and that's, by the way, regardless of what happens between Paramount and Warner Brothers. Just within Paramount itself, they have a very, very full slate, and I would say that one of the films that there seemed to be buzz on is this Heart of the Beast film, David Ayer's film with it's Brad Pitt and a dog. So you'll be Wendy, you're going to be up for this.
I am. I've already watched the trailer or whatever, a teaser or something, because Brad Pitt, yes. Dog, yes. I'm in.
So it's a survival thriller in Alaska. They go off in this, small little plane, and I think the pilot probably expires in the middle of the flight. This sort of grizzled old guy, and they crash land, and then they have to survive, and they have to, the pitch is that it's the dog helping Brad to survive, and it's Brad helping the dog to survive. So it's man and dog kind of trusting each other and bringing their combined skill set to survive in the Alaskan. And and it's a great, if you think about it, it's like those kind of classic movies where actors are on their own on screen. We saw that with Tom Hanks has done that in the past. So
Redford famously,
yeah, Robert Redford, exactly. So it's a big, it's something that an actor, I guess, those opportunities don't come along, every day. David Ayer, who directed Brad Pitt in that Second World War tank film Fury, coming together. Leaving aside any of my opinions, I would say there was a sort of buzz on that film.
Charles, I'm also curious, Mubi presents, and they're a big player in the films I love, but they're obviously not doing huge blockbusters. How does a presentation from a company like Mubi go down in that room, and what did you like from the Mubi slate?
Well, what I would say about Mubi is that it's true that we traditionally think about CineEurope as the big studios doing their big studio slates, and we think of it as being a very commercial kind of event. However, it is co-presented by Unique and the sort of European organization. A lot of independent cinema operators are there, and Everyman is there, Picture House are there, Curzon are there.
Curzon,
speaking to the UK, and so they don't just want to see Avengers, Doomsday, and the new Star Wars film. They actually do want to come, and also not everyone who attends CineEurope goes to the Cannes Film Festival. So if you weren't at Cannes, this is actually a great, the great thing about CineEurope is it's a real 360 view of everything that's coming out over the next, year, 2 years, and including Mubi, and including Studio Canal, which has a slightly more, Studio Canal, to be fair, has a very diverse slate, but it does have some art house films in the mix. So I would say, for Mubi, where you had, like Jane Schoenbrun's film.
Yeah, I was going to say Teenage Sex and Death could really do well, even at the multiplexes, I think. I think that really has crossover. I hope it does. I hope it's the cult hit that Jane deserves.
And they have, movies like the Lucas Dont film Coward. So, a lot of what they were showing were not like, they were films that had been shown at Cannes. But, it's a short but sweet presentation, did not overstay its welcome. And, it was a nice to have in the mix, I would say, Mubi.
Charles, I'm also curious about Angel Studios, because this is the big faith-based distributor. They do very well known in the US. I haven't really tracked maybe I'm not the target audience. I haven't really been tracking what they do so much in Europe. And how did that kind of presentation go down in a room full of Europeans? And I think there were also a number of faith-based films across other slates from what you've reported.
Yeah, biblical tales were certainly a trend, notable trend at CineEurope this year. What I would say about Angel is that it's true that North America is their priority market. They're actually very loyal attendees at CineEurope, and they clearly have a big international strategy. They clearly see in a lot more international potential for their films than have they've necessarily always been achieving. And often they have been sort of shunted onto the last day. And as a result of that, I'm always really busy. I'm always like desperately trying to finish off writing up my reports. And I kind of thought, Angel, that is a not compulsory presentation for me to attend. This year, Universal went on the last day, and so Angel had a kind of better slot that was sort of like in the general running order. So I attended. It was very full. I think people were happy to see what they've got going on. They've got a film called Young Washington, which is about George Washington, sort of before he became
Is
president.
there an apple tree involved,
I,
Charles? Was that George Washington and an apple tree, or is
I,
that's
you would
Johnny
know more than I.
Appleseed?
You'd
God.
know more than me.
Okay.
I'm a bit shaky on my sort of Revolutionary War era history. However, so he's actually, I think, an officer in the British Army at the time. Because obviously, Great Britain was what was um, the States was a colony of Great Britain. So it's something that I would say does have international potential. And in the 250th year of independence in the United States, this is clearly a film with North America clearly in its sights. But you know, we've all heard of George Washington.
Okay, good.
We're going
Yeah.
to be very aware of this celebration. So, and then on top of that, biblical, they have a biblical tale called Zero AD, which is, you know, the period of the birth of Christ. I think we can all agree. Which it's interesting. Like you and I are both in the UK, and I would say that the UK, not only is it not North America, we are a very secular country,
Yes.
secular
Yes,
vibe
yes.
going on. Like the
I
rest
mean, I
of the
think if we were in Rome, we might be having a different discussion
exactly.
about the
There are
birth of Christ.
there are other
Yes.
countries in the world that are just more into religion, than we are. And so I think that Zero AD definitely has the potential to kind of resonate in in markets where Christianity is the main faith. And talking of biblical tales, yeah, so Lionsgate have this uh Lionsgate have the new film from Mel Gibson, which is actually a two-parter. So it's a sequel to The Passion of the Christ. It is called The Resurrection of the Christ, and it's going to be on Ascension Day, in I think 2027 and 2028. So Ascension Day is
Okay, so this is looking ahead. Yeah.
in May.
That's just at the end of Easter period, I
Exactly.
guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, I'm not, my knowledge of Christian religious festivals is a little bit shaky, but I think it's per my notes, it's going to be like May 2027, May 2028. But bearing in mind, look, the Passion of the Christ. Sure, North America was gangbusters on that film. I've actually written it down here. So it did 371 million in North America and 239 million in international and 610 million worldwide. So yeah, sure, North America is a bigger market, but that is still a great international number. That is a fantastic global number. And, it's been a long wait for this film. And, they had a piece by Mel Gibson, and he was talking about how, it just took him time to, creatively to kind of come up with this, the right, a way of looking at this story. And I was thinking, yeah, I'm sure that's true. But also, it cannot have escaped Lionsgate's attention that biblical stories are doing really well via companies such as Angel Studios. Um, Amazon NGM have also got they've got the latest The Chosen, which they've been The Chosen has been released in cinemas very successfully in North America, and it so I kind of feel like biblical tales are having their moment, and that fact may have fed into the green light decision on more of Mel Gibson's Jesus story.
You mentioned Paramount and their presentation promising us lots of films. You mentioned Warner Brothers had another strong presentation. But I mean, there's kind of an elephant in the room. And were people talking about this merger? Were people, I mean, once again, you're not allowed to ask people, but did you hear any chatter? Did anybody, was it just ignored on stage?
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone was talking about it for sure. And actually, and I can ask people about that because it doesn't really relate to the Slate
Okay.
presentation. So
So
that was
you're allowed to speak.
I'm
Thank
allowed to
you. Thank
speak on
you,
this
CineEurope.
topic. It was definitely something that people were talking about. And I think what everyone wants to know is, assuming this merger proceeds, and I know it's been approved federally in the United States, but there's still a lot of other kind of regulatory hurdles in the rest of the world that this merger faces. But assuming this proceeds, how is this merged entity going to work? And because when Disney bought Fox, I think Fox was a big company, but it kind of got fairly kind of easily absorbed into Disney via the continuation of 20th Century Studios and of Searchlight. Whereas this is, looking at the Paramount slate, which was huge, and looking at the Warner Brothers slate, which was even bigger, you're like, this it's just no single person can kind of like run these two studios in a merged entity. That would be insane. So I think the feeling was, and there was literally no mention. There was literally no mention of from Warner Brothers who were before Paramount, and
Yeah.
there was no. And then when Paramount began, and it was talking about, there's never been a better time to work at Paramount. It's exciting times, bigger, more movies than ever. I kind of thought, oh, this is like heading in the direction of leading into, absorbing Warner
And we
Brothers. But
can't wait to grow the family.
exactly. It
Yes.
never it never went there. It was just all about its own slate, which is, very buoyant and highly kind of populated with films. So that was, it was interesting. It was like interesting for what was not said as much as for what was said. So the question will be, who will be running, will, Mike and
Well,
Pat.
first question is, I mean, I think the US regulators have signed off, but the European regulators are still taking a closer look at this. So at the time we're recording anyway, and we'll see what
Yeah.
has happened by the time this podcast is out, but we should know more from some of the European regulators. But yeah, Charles, what were you saying about
Well, I mean, so that means there's
we'll have to
two
wait and see.
there's two considerations about merged leadership, which is, on the creative side, you know, greenlighting films, whether that will be brought together or will they be run separately. And then there's the whole distribution side, whether that will be brought together or not. So, is this I mean, Jeff Goldstein won Distributor of the Year for Warner Brothers, and he came on to accept his award just ahead of the Slate presentation. Um, but people were thinking, like, is this the last time we will see Jeff on stage wearing his Warner Brothers hat? By the way, when I say wearing his hat, I mean literally, he was wearing
He's on
a,
message.
a WB hat, and then was talking about, he did this whole kind of little performance with all these other little hats. He had his DC Studios hat on and stuff. So there was a whole hat thing going on with Warner Brothers. But yeah, we were like thinking, Jeff, it's great to have you on stage in your Warner Brothers hat, but are we going to be seeing you back in the same hat in a year's time?
Oh gosh, what there's so much unknown, isn't there, about if that happens, what will actually it look like, and will we get all those promised films in cinemas that they have said? But we'll keep everybody updated at Screen Daily as soon as we know more. Charles, I've heard through the grapevine that some of the great perks of Cine Europe are lost on you because there's usually free popcorn and free Coke. And I remember the first time I went in Amsterdam and I was just like, yes, free popcorn and Coke. And then like after like day one, I was like, okay, I might still want one more Diet Coke. And then like by day three, it was like, oh my gosh, I just want some naturally
Yeah,
occurring fruit juice
yeah.
or some healthy food. So you don't even partake of the popcorn.
So yeah, I kind of feel like cover your ears, cinema operators. I don't like the snacks and carbonated drinks that you that you offer, and I particularly don't like the portion sizes, which I think are ridiculously large, and you should absolutely not be pushing them on your poor customers. Yeah, I do not. I kind of feel like I feel such a sort of boring person because I'm like, I have literally no interest in eating any of the free food and drink that they offer. They do give you, by the way. I mean, Cine Europe, they give you like meals which are
Meal.
surprisingly
Okay.
nice and
Because they
help.
don't want you to leave the area.
Well,
So that's good.
it's extremely
Yeah.
efficient. I mean, for me, because I'm like
Yeah.
literally rushing back to my hotel room to like write reports. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to quickly grab some food and it's like great. It's great. And I think considering they have to feed like thousands of people, they're doing like an amazing job. But as for all of the, snacks that they're offering, I literally had zero popcorn, zero nachos, zero carbonated drinks. I'm just like, I've got my
Okay.
bottle of water and I'm good.
Your body is a temple, Charles. I salute you.
Well,
Yeah,
I'd love people to think,
I lost my taste. Yeah,
yeah, I
sorry.
would love people to think I have got great willpower. The reality is that this was not a hard choice for me.
Um, and Charles, I still have, I think, my Inception T-shirt. It was a very soft shirt, and that's a film that I love. And we got to see a sneak of the whole film one year in Amsterdam at Cine Europe, and that was the piece of swag that I kept. I mean, do people still do swag? Did you get
Yeah,
anything?
so I think there's
Does
probably
your hut? Yeah.
over the years that I've been going to Cine Europe, I would say the swag has slightly diminished because I think there is a kind of an environmental consideration of
Yes.
should we be manufacturing all of this stuff and do people want it and do people really value it? Having said that, Disney, I think people go to Disney and they expect something kind of nice from Disney. And I definitely got last year, I got a lovely Stitch toy
Oh, yeah.
which I gave to my neighbor's daughter. And I was very sort of
Lovely.
like, does she want this funny little blue alien? Does she even know what it is? But she weirdly like treasures it. So Disney had, quite a nice bag and it had a Buzz Lightyear kind of plush kind of thing in it. But the one thing that I took home, I'll go and grab it for you, um, is,
Yes, come back.
is the, is this. So this was the Amazon MGM Studios bag, and it was and it had a number of items in it. But the one thing that I kept is the MGM lion. The famous kind of lion that represents MGM. So I kind of thought this was quite nice. It's something that I will definitely be giving to my neighbor's child. But everything else, I
Or
always
your podcast host. You never know. You never
well, you
know who's
guys
going
can
to
fight.
end up with that lion.
You guys can fight over it.
No.
I always, when you're leaving the hotel and you check in your bag in the kind of cloakroom area, I always like hand over these bags of stuff to the guy who looks after your suitcase for you, who always seems like, I always think, God, how many of these has he been given this morning? Like of people not wanting to schlep it
Yeah,
all.
how many housekeepers have been gifted
Exactly. I think they
some kind
just
of
gather them all
plush?
together
Yeah.
and they distribute them amongst the hotel
Yeah.
staff
Lovely.
that want them. Yeah,
That's nice.
I don't have
Yeah.
room in my luggage. To carry it all back. So that they offered me so Paramount offered me a Street Fighter t-shirt. That was their
Okay.
gift. I just struggle to imagine me wearing
I struggle to see you in that,
a Street
Charles.
Fighter
So
t-shirt. And yeah, so I passed on that opportunity. Thank you, Paramount. That was very kind. Many people were very enthusiastically grabbing their Street Fighter t-shirt. I actually saw people wearing them the next day. But yeah,
tragic.
it
Yes.
doesn't.
Okay. Yeah.
I've never played the game. I obviously look forward to the film.
Yeah. That totally I have by the way, I have to just give my festival tip, event tip. Do not wear the t-shirt the day after they give it to you. Also, it's the same like if you get a festival bag, don't use it at that festival. You have to wait one festival because also everybody else in the cloakroom there's 50 of those bags. Like, no, people, yeah, be sensible. Charles, I hadn't expected you to. It's almost like doing a shopping influencer moment when you unbagged the MGM Lion, and I'm here for it. So stay tuned for future unveilings at the Screen Podcast. Well, we are all going to stay tuned to the unveilings of these films. It really does sound like a buoyant year. There's a lot in that you mentioned that I'm personally looking forward to. And we didn't even talk about Digger with Tom Cruise. Want to give
Yeah,
a quick shout?
Digger was again another film that I would say was a buzz title at the convention. It's directed by Alejandro Inarritu. Oh, and Tom Cruise. I mean, we should mention Tom Cruise. I mean, Tom Cruise, although he wasn't there, he was a kind of a weird. He was a weirdly ever-present feature of the event because they introduced their Digger stuff with this incredible kind of. I think they've actually released it online, like afterwards. Yeah, I think you can if you search for it. I think you'll find it, but it is a montage of Tom Cruise's iconic roles. And you just watch it, and you're just thinking, look, I know Tom Cruise is a great actor and a great movie star, but oh my God, he has done some phenomenal work over the past 40 years. So that was a really lovely kind of tribute to him. And then the next day, when Paramount went up, they began with this, it was after they'd done their comic sketch based on their film Ebenezer. They then, Mark Vian then introduced this film directed by John M. Chu, which was a sort of a tribute to Paramount's legacy, but also featured contributions from some of the filmmakers that they're working with at the moment, like John Krasinski, etc. And it was narrated. Now, you hear the narration, and you're like, I know who's narrating this film. That voice is pretty distinctive. They've got Tom Cruise to do this. That's awesome. And so then the film sort of the narration continues all the way. It's narrated all the way through by Tom Cruise, and then the camera kind of zooms in on the Paramount water tower at their.
Gosh,
You know what's coming. You know what's coming. And there
I
is
do. I
Tom
do.
there is Tom Cruise, sort of narrating and like finishing
Doing his ADR up there. Yeah.
doing his AD, doing his ADR up there, yeah, because we're probably not going to get a very crisp recording up there. But you're like, and he's sitting there obviously with no harness, no, just sitting on the top of it, and you just think, Tom, you got to hand it to him. He's a born showman.
Gosh, yeah.
But
Well, yeah.
answering your question about Digger, yeah. So I think that footage played at CinemaCon as well, and and you are allowed to report on footage at CinemaCon. So it played very well at CinemaCon, and I would say the vibes were also very warm at CineEurope.
I'm hoping it's sort of Tom Cruise in like Magnolia mode a little bit.
It
I
is,
mean,
yeah.
different character,
It's a
but
very
yeah,
different
I'm
character.
hoping.
He plays from what I could tell, he plays a billionaire, kind of running an energy company, and he's being basically told that there's this sort of disaster coming in somewhere up in the icy north of the world, possibly Iceland or Greenland or wherever they're kind of drilling, and he doesn't make the decision to shut down, and then then a really big disaster happens that is, threatening to the kind of swathes of the planet and is going to cost trillions of dollars to fix. So it looks a lot of fun, and he's it's not his most aesthetically beautiful look. It's him as a kind of, sort of rather unattractive, older kind of billionaire corporate corporate chief, I would say. So it's a bit like, some of the parts he's played with a lot of hair and makeup that are.
Okay. I hope it doesn't go as far as Tropic Thunder, because
It's
that was
not.
just a
It's
little
not.
too much.
It's not Tropic Thunder, but yeah, it's definitely, they're definitely not kind of trading off his sort of famous sort of movie star handsomeness, for sure.
Tom, you're always beautiful to me. I'll be first in the queue for Digger. But for now, thank you, Charles, for joining us. That was a great report. And I'll remember not to bring you a tub of popcorn next time we're sitting together at a screening.
You are very kind.
And thanks to everybody for tuning in to the Screen Podcast. We really appreciate you listening. Please do subscribe, rate us, comment. We would love to hear some feedback. And thanks to the whole team at Screen who makes this possible, especially our producer, Ellie Calnan, and our head of digital, Orlando Parfit. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you again next Thursday.